All right, everybody, welcome back to the latest episode of the GBL Podcast. It's really glad to be here. We've been here about a couple weeks ago, and we have a ton of things interesting short topic list, but lots to go over. We are here with Best Boy, who is the organizer of Quarterly Rapport. Say hi, Best.
Hello. You can call me Chris. That's fine.
Chris Farina on Twitter, Best Boy and Mist, and Aliens. How you doing?
What's going on, everybody?
It's good to have you. Good to have you. And Diz, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How y'all doing?
Oh, that's good to hear. I'm doing fine myself. All right, so topic this week is going to include recapping Quarterly Rapport, which has happened this past weekend. Quarterly Rapport 2, talking a little bit about PlayStation 5 since their presentation just came back, comparing it to Xbox, and just what we've been up to lately. So the main thing that I want to go over on this show today is talking about the success of Quarterly Rapport 2, and we finally have, as of a couple of hours ago, I believe, a total breakdown of the amount of funds raised for direct relief. So, Chris, I don't know if you have that available. You can just tell us, go through, like, how much was it, what was the best impact, where did we grow the most? I don't know if you have, like, a little breakdown you can give us of that stuff.
All right, yeah. Well, here, I can go ahead and share general. How does this work?
You can go ahead and list it off.
I'll put it in the Twitch, too.
Sure.
Here's the breakdown. Long story short, we raised 7,700. Last time we raised 5,000 something. I actually don't remember. The good thing this time around was having 30% of the winners donate their earnings back, which was 1,900 more. So we definitely didn't expect it to be that high. I think it was more like 20% last time. So that's nice to see. Everyone's getting into the spirit of it. And then, yeah, I mean, in terms of size, last time we had 37 games, and now we're at 68, although we have 73 unique events. So we didn't quite double, but that's definitely an increase. Staff went from probably, 1 to 150 up to 250, and then entrants, I think we had like probably 1,100 last time and up to 1,900 this time. I should double check that.
Okay. All right.
And reflect who actually shows up and check it, of course.
Okay, yeah, we're talking about, it was already a really strong showing with the 5,000 at the first QR, and then QR2, obviously, it's nice to hear that just about every aspect got bigger, including the number of games, number of staff who were able to help out, things like that. I don't know if there was anything that you guys, would say in aftermath. What was, the biggest, I guess, change that you guys made for QR2? What was the biggest lesson learned from the first one to the second one?
Man, every time we're learning something different. I honestly hadn't heard of half these games. I've been around playing games for a little bit, not all of them, more mainstream, but it's nice learning about all the niche games and all their own issues and all their own net play quirks. That's kind of one thing we just outsource that, and it's okay because each tournament knows what to do, or each Discord community. Overall, I don't know, it's very different from IRL tournaments because you have no setup limitations and you have no, the scheduling is pretty free too.
Right.
And everyone can kind of just sit home. So I don't know. What do you think went well this time? What went bad? Because honestly, it's probably down to just scheduling and just trying to figure out how an event like this should work. And it's going to take a few times, but I wonder if anything else stood out to you.
I think that at least personally, when I looked over everything, one of the things that fascinates me about QR, and one of the things that I think fighting game communities in general, when it comes to online stuff like this, they can learn from is the part that you mentioned at the beginning, the outsourcing process, right? Where it's like, okay, you guys already know how this game works. You guys know everything about running it. You guys know everything about getting players for it. So go ahead and bring them. Use your Discord, use your stream. That's entirely up to us. And those kinds of things generally, you run into certain events where the organizers are obviously very competent and very informed about general tournament organization, but if there's a quirk or there's lack of commentary or maybe the setup isn't exactly correct, then it's not something they can control because they've brought the game onto themselves and they haven't really brought the game into a community that's already more familiar with it, right? This isn't really a problem in most offline places because usually the offline places are run by people who like those games already. But in online tournaments, especially now that people have diversified into rollback netcode games and lesser known titles, stuff like that, you end up in situations where the tournament organizers are aware of the game, but not necessarily too familiar with how it works and what needs to be, taken into consideration when they run it. So I think the outsourcing process is the most interesting.
Yeah, we could speak a little bit about that because that's clearly the differentiating factor here. Like, the only way we were able to go from 0 to 36 in that short a time was building on existing infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely commend all the little communities. Like, if you think about it, I reached out to maybe 200 random strangers on the internet, and the success rate of that is very high, mainly because we looked for people who were already doing this, already had a series, they're already a center of the community.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely contributes to the success, like building on people who are already there or already suggested by a developer, something like that. So overall, I would say there were 1 and 2 games with hiccups, but on the grand scale, like operationally, it's pretty easy. You see how I organize it. I'm just sending messages in Discord and copy paste. For the most part, people do follow instructions well. It just takes a few reminders. So I'm impressed by that. It's a good team.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned developers, and I think that's actually something that grew with this one. Not even just like money related, just the developer presence, right? Like,
oh yeah, it definitely helped to have last time under our belt. I could approach many more people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to see it, but I heard that Acceleration of Suguri 2 did like an announcement for a new patch at the end of their tournament. Was that what happened there?
Well, at least a few games, all the games took an advantage of this to promote themselves. I think Kwahimi Enbu, I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Right.
They had some DLC that came out, and they did a permanent price adjustment on the same day.
Wow.
And AOS did some announcement. So I think overall, people, like the first time around, the reason we had so much prize support for some of those games and the partnership with Mimas is because they just have nothing to go to anymore. So they're willing to support online events. So now that they have no way to market their game or like no in-person presence to do that, we're probably the next best alternative. And we're also very cheap for the individual developers.
Right. I mean, it's something that doesn't happen very often. Usually, most games like this would have some sort of sponsored event where they would work on it themselves, or they'd be in charge of organization. Arc Revo, right? Type things like that, where they do their announcements when everyone in charge is organized by the company. But in this situation, right, it's really just handing over to the community and just saying, all right, we're gonna be the bridge that gets the game's announcements out through the community who are already playing the game. So that's really interesting. The fact that the community members are able to get involved in ways that usually they can't, right?
I would say there's 2 types of the sponsors. One of them is more your modern indie game that's trying to build a presence in a league. That would be like Rivals, Slayer for Hire, Fighting Herds a little bit. They kind of backed off this time, Skullgirls. Then you have games like Koihime Enbu, if I'm saying that correctly.
Right, I think you are.
Am I? Okay. I don't think I ever said it out loud. That game, another one was Golden Fantasia. Just going in and asking, like, do you want to run a tournament? They're so used to having no one ask that they were willing, even as a foreign Japanese company, to listen and like send us $50 and some game codes. So I think it's like that. It's the little games that are ignored, like the attention and appreciate it. The modern small games are indies, so they're indie friendly, of course. It's easy to work with them. I've been working with Skullgirls and Rivals that are in-person events since 2017 for minor prize support. And then, it's not that we're avoiding the big games, but it's by building on the existing small infrastructure and aggregating, it's easy on the one hand, but we also can't do that infinitely. Like, it's a lot more work to add a big game like Ultimate, even though we are outsourcing that. So I think we'll have to see where this limit breaks, and like also where the developers start getting less friendly to it, maybe. Because these are all old dead games. They don't really care, right? If we start running Ultimate and other things, we may have to cut back on P+. We may have to reconsider some partnerships, but they're all good problems to have. So we'll decide when it comes to that point.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? I think that one of the interesting things about QR, because when we talk about Evo or Anim Evo, we're thinking about bigger titles, even, right? We're thinking about Mortal Kombat. We're thinking about Street Fighter, things like that. And those games, the presence takes a backseat in the online environment for various reasons. But in QR, I think some of the more memorable streams. Not that any of them were any less memorable. Some of the stuff that stood out more was the presence of like games that never get tournaments otherwise. Like as I had heard from people for Akatsuki BlitzConf, they had never done a tournament net play of that scale ever. I was like, I've never.
A lot of them haven't. Yeah, and I think some of these games I've approached for QR1. And then they saw that other games are doing it. If you see it's for free for charity, I think it gives that sort of that GBQ vibe where this isn't a world record attempt. You can have fun, and then people are more willing for lower stakes to play in these free tournaments. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Now that we show that it's possible, it's also the only way to keep some of these games alive. When you get 8 people across the whole globe, like you have to go online, or like, you can't just wait for a big major or wait for people to aggregate. So. It's not the ideal competitive situation, but it's the closest you can get in some cases.
Right, and I think that is a substitute for something I think we're missing this year that, at least in speaking with a couple of other developers and communities, I know a lot of people who personally wanted to make it to Combo Breaker this year. Because one of the things that happens at Combo Breaker is that there are games that generally don't get an outing at a local or at a major that show up there because there's a 24/7 venue, so somebody just shows up and they have, these games you've never heard of being played on the floor. And obviously that didn't happen this year, so it's really cool to have something like that in an online format where permissible. I mean, and where permissible is loosely used because there are games that don't even have online support at all that got played. Shout out to Schwarzer Blitz, game that does not have online, that they managed to figure out some crazy setup where both players are on parsec and they had like a equal frame delay at both of the players. So it's like hearing about that setup is one of the craziest things that I imagine can be done on the internet for playing a video game. But they did it, and they did the whole tournament, and shout-outs to them. Shout-outs to Andrea Jens, who develops the game, tournament organizes the game, and all these other things. A lot of work in that game. I will say that for QR2, there were, significant developer presence increases and much more games and stuff like that, much more prizes. But I also think the player mentality shifted a little bit, right? I think at QR1 when it was over, I didn't hear very much about it, and then when QR2 was over for some players, I heard so many things about it. I heard so many people talking about it and talking how they could have done better and how they were washed up and how they were first, guys, it's the social media. Just you guys are fine. You guys did great. Don't beat yourselves up over your tournament performance. But it's really interesting to see something like that because nowadays, people are starting to realize that playing online competition isn't like a joke thing, right? Like even though it's a charity tournament, people still play pretty seriously. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for some of them especially, it's like I guess you're right. It is a social shift. If everyone is sort of like in that mood, people start to treat it that way. And I'm fine not being super competitive. I would hate to run online super competitive tournaments. That's why we always were in person before this.
Right.
But I'm like, if some game wants to use this as a cornerstone for their series or like take it super seriously, I think that's fine. And for some of the small games, I don't know, maybe low tiers is an option or like more fun types of events. Those sort of suggestions are always welcome. It's more just like the logistical hassle of fitting all this stuff into a weekend. So we clearly, I guess that's one question on the scheduling feedback. It's unlikely we can do this in a long marathon format. It's always going to be squished into a weekend. So I don't know. It's a question of how big we can get with that. And then if we have to shift it, what should we look like next or what will it turn into?
I actually think that I'm aware of events that actually have the opposite perspective. What they're interested in doing in certain other online tournaments is they're saying, well, we show up at a venue and we have to do everything in 2 days because they're going to kick us out if we don't do it in 2 days, right? So we have to do it in 2 days and we have to schedule it and everything has to be tight. Now, the good news about this QR format of just having it in a weekend anyway is that people can kind of like reserve a day just to play in the different games, and it's easier on their schedule. They don't have to like say, okay, I have to be available at this time on Tuesday, at this time on Wednesday, or whatever like that, right? Like they could just say, all right, well, it's Friday, I'm there. Most people have the weekends off, so they have the weekend to play, so they have these opportunities. But I've heard heard the opposite in some circles. I'm like, all right, well, there's no venues, so there's no schedule, so let's just do it whenever we can. We'll do them all in a week if we have to. That way, people don't lose stream spotlight or whatever, right? Like, I get that. Sometimes in QR there were like 3 or 4 streams running at the same time. I don't think it was too big of a deal.
It was up to 20 at both days, I think.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, there you go, right? Like, there are just so many games happening at once, right? Like, I think there was something for everyone because it was like over 70, so obviously that's gonna happen. But I get that concern, right? Like, if you're trying to run a bunch of games at once, what you want to do, at least, like, I guess out of goodwill, is just to give as many games spotlight as possible, right? Like having more overlap means there's more streams going on at the same time. There's less viewers on any specific game, so maybe smaller games get slightly less viewership than a big one, just out of brand, or their competitive scene is maybe more active on the internet or whatever, things like that. And
that's how it works out, I think, too. All the little ones got low viewership, so I think it's more an issue of, if we want to spotlight people, we can't have 20 running at once. But at the same time, we can't string them out one at a time, end on end, like GDQ would in a marathon.
Right.
We don't want to split it up either. Like, maybe top 8 on Sunday is okay, but doing it over 2 weekends, that's a lot for me too, because I work and we all have jobs. Like, it's nice to have it just one and done.
Yeah.
So maybe we stretch it to 4 days. Like Thursday night, we had some. I'm not really sure, but when we ask communities to pick the day, it's basically the distribution you got here. A few on Friday, at least 30 of the 68 were Saturday, and then like 20 to 25 on Sunday.
How many games? I know at least for Fight of Animals we did it on Friday. How many games ended up doing Friday? Like, was that like a big thing?
Let's see. So 10 of the 75 events were on Friday.
Only 10? Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, the schedule did look small. So that I guess that helps for some smaller communities, but I understand. People, I guess, just predominantly prefer Saturday or Sunday. Maybe it's just because they're available those days. I'm generally not, so that's just kind of an outlier for me. But it's interesting because, I guess given the right logistics, you could stretch it out like GDQ, and that's a great point of comparison. I guess that's kind of the only point of comparison, right? Because GDQ is an event that kind of just lets people run it, right? Basically, and they just provide like the venue, the quote unquote venue in this case, right?
Well, yeah, we can break it down because we've been considering this and how we're growing. GDQ is all volunteer, all decentralized in that they have the application process, but each person pays their way to come in and set it up, and they have their schedule. So they have a little bit more control over that, because if it's one person, you can put them at 3 a.m. and no one cares. No offense to the one person. But if we're trying to get like 60 people for a bracket, or even 20 people for a small bracket, they're all going to fall along the same general time zone, like afternoons, whatever. And the other thing is, it's like a telethon. Like, the more time you're on air is better than just having a lot of exposure in one small period. So a marathon is much better for those long, slow crowd funds.
Right.
Whereas we may want to focus on big incentives, big donations, and the prize aspect, I think, is a good one.
Okay, yeah. And in terms of pricing, there were more prizes given out this year, right? Like more prize money in general. What was that like?
Yep. 6,200 something.
Okay, wow. Shit, that's a lot of money to be handing around. And you guys, like, I don't think most communities had a problem with region locks, at least I think. A lot of games, like there was like NAEU and that's it, or global, or NA only, or whatever, depending on the game we're talking about. And like the prize process wasn't too difficult to get through, right? Like, I know you guys in the tweet where you publish everything, you guys said all prizes are paid. Like, was that a process or?
Yeah, it's a whole process, because after every meeting, we ask each group to get the 3 people and ask if they want to donate or keep it, and then what do they want to get paid out in. So we have to automate this process clearly as we grow. Like last time the stream was all manual me, and this time I had someone code a stream to automate that. Right. So as we're going, we're going to keep improving on these things. GDQ has all their own custom stuff. You can look it up on GitHub, but it looks a little bit complex for what we were doing. Maybe next time we'll have more of a back end, or like a better donation drive. I don't know. But yeah, I guess. Yeah, the good question is, how do we maximize the donations, I think? Because people seem to be enjoying it. I don't think there's anything we have to do to improve the player experience outside better scheduling, because we can't control the net play for most of these things.
Right. So
it comes down to like, how do we maximize viewership? How do we get like viewers involved and sharing it? And then how do we raise money? maybe it's like a merchandise route where whatever percent goes to charity. I'm not sure, but those are suggestions I'm looking for.
Now that you ask, I guess one thing I would say is that you see this at locals, and you even see it. You see this at majors, and you see this at GDQ. There's always a stinger cut where they show the donation incentives, right? They always, bring up like a little clip, and they show what's being sold or what you can get into and what the link is and stuff like that. So that's something that we could do. I know that in terms of like streamer requirements for every single stream, it wasn't too much. Just like the donations and the info page was the big thing that we had this year. The info page.
That's a good point, actually. Standardizing across all the streams would do a lot for us, I think. And that info page was just like the first step. We definitely needed to list all the incentives, like you said.
Yeah, I think pushing the incentives a little more would be better, because there was actually a lot of cool things. Digital Crafter had some game codes to give away. Hitbox did a Smashbox, I believe, was the giveaway, and just like that aspect grew a lot, actually, like low key. So being able to shout it out through all the streams would probably drive that, if you ask me. And that kind of is interesting, because the logistics of that are, it's actually interesting to hear that they would be giving away a physical device like Hitbox did for that giveaway, because
that's a new thing for us too, though. It was much easier just sending codes, so we're happy that they're going to send it to the person. But in the future, if we have people donating a lot of physical goods, I'm not sure exactly how we'd manage that at scale yet.
Yeah, because that does sound like a really expensive venture. I mean, it's good for Hitbox. I'm sure Hitbox, they're going to be taking care of that. But it's like, if people want to show those things in, it's definitely like a logistical challenge. Just from what I've heard, we had been looking it up, I think, for other events, just like sending people a medal, and it was like insane amount of money to get it across the globe or something like that. So we're like, we probably shouldn't offer these kinds of things if people can register from that far, because the logistical challenge of sending it to them is crazy. So it's something to consider, right? Something we don't usually have to deal with. And it goes back to what I think last episode we were talking with Mike Z about this, and we were saying, hey, the logistical challenges of online events such as this one are big, but different. They're just as big, but they're different compared to an offline event. They're still big things that we have to deal with, but they're a different set of problems. I don't know if you guys agree with that opinion.
I mean, this is way easier than running a big tournament, definitely, because I can just sit home. Okay, the fact that I could run these two events not knowing any of the people and never using my voice up until basically this point, like all through messaging, shows how easy it is, I think, especially with modern tools like Google Docs and GitHub.
Right.
Not GitHub, Discord. So, yeah, like in terms of scaling this, I just need an operating budget. Like I can just start charging sponsors a little bit and use that to pay our coders, to get some nice overlays and give that out to the streamers. Everyone would still be volunteer. We wouldn't be profiting, but I think at some point we need something just to manage the overhead. But once we have the overhead taken care of, operationally, this is easy, especially if we have the sponsors drop shipping, or whatever you would call it, sending their physical goods directly, and I never have to touch them. But we have to build a better system for that.
And I guess, like, okay, so break it down for me in comparison to you guys' event. You guys, Quarterly Rapport is in New Jersey, right?
Yes, we're a one-day regional in New Jersey.
Okay, and how big does that get by comparison?
Our peak was like 250 people. We usually hover between 120 and 150. We took like a year break, and we came back for 5, 6, and 7, and then right after 7 is when we started quarantine.
Right.
And those events it's in the same spirit. It's basically the core philosophy is the same, where we use Melee as a tentpole, and we have all the little games that can't afford a venue sort of cluster around it.
Right. Okay.
So we're usually half of the entrants are Melee, and then we have 7 to 8 small games, including Third Strike, Skullgirls, Street Fighter, Dragon Ball, Rivals. Sometimes I can send you a little list of that. But Quarantine is basically just taking that and scaling it up to a bigger level and then going nonprofit, I would say.
Okay.
Like, the way we were able to go from 0 to 10 games in just a week was because I just reached out to 64 and reached out to Third Strike and went, hey, do you want to do like this online thing? But we just finished QR7, so they're all like, sure, we have nothing going on.
Okay. And let's talk Smash for a minute. Smash online is kind of in a weird space because a lot of those tournaments, I want to say personally, I think you guys did, I think the QR brackets for Smash were probably run in the best way I've seen them so far. I think a lot of very stupid oversights happen in the world of online Smash Bros. Because, they don't region lock appropriately, they don't consider, like the player's Wi-Fi or whatever. They just don't make good judgment calls, and there's a lot of clips that come out later of, complaints about the way it was handled and stuff like that. So, I haven't seen any of those complaints, at least personally, so I think that's great. But, like, the Smash aspect of QR, like, how has that been? Has it been working well? Have you guys found it a little more difficult to run, or generally smooth sailing? What's that been like?
Oh, I would never run an online Smash event before this, hell no. But
right.
The first one was way bigger, mainly because, well, one, we had $1,000 pool for Melee, and two, I think there was just less saturation, and it was like a trendy thing almost, like, the quarantine had basically just started, and we were very quick on the scene.
Right.
And now there's so many net play tournaments that I'm fine just not adding to that amount. We always preferred to run less often. So this time around, both Melee and P Plus had less people, but I'm not upset at all about that. Like,
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's interesting, right? What would you say?
I don't blame them for not wanting to play.
Exactly, right? Like, you don't blame anyone. It's a really rough space to play online in, despite everything.
Yeah.
So, but at least, I remember at the first QR, I happened to be off during Sig Melee's stream, and I tuned in, and I was like, this is not going so bad. It seems like, they're doing a good thing. Really interesting to see the first QR. What was it? DK and Game & Watch, something like that was grand finals, and it was great.
QR1?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wow, that was so long ago. That was definitely Curb and, like, NJ's Finest or someone, and I don't know. It's definitely a different vibe at our events. We're much more chill and laid back, especially back then when it was smaller and we were just in the office building.
Right. What is the logistics for that, by the way? Do you guys, like, war room out or something like that when you guys have this going on, even if it's online, or is it just like you guys are at home dealing with it?
I mean, let me see if I have any pictures of this.
I'll pull
the
it up.
first two events we held in an office building on the second floor. And it was a lot of, like, walking upstairs with TVs, and it was a crowded space. And then right before our third one, the pipes all burst, and we had to find a new venue last second. So we were able to grab the old K-Tar venue, and we've been there ever since. Here are some pictures, or at least if this loads, it's pictures. I can post these in Twitch chat.
Yeah, sure. You should be able to.
You should be good now.
Okay.
Because it's definitely... It's interesting to see how people deal with communications, because, like, you guys are on the back end looking at, like, these 20 plus games, what you're telling me, running at the same time, and you guys are just making sure that everything's going well. Obviously, the tournament organizers have a certain level of responsibility, but, like, you guys were, I guess, just monitoring the whole situation. I don't know what that communication was looking like between your team.
I mean, honestly, so my co-organizer, the other Chris, Solid Bones,
right,
he basically handled all money aspects, and I didn't look at it at all, just because it's way too much for, like, I don't want to say I did everything else, but I did literally 90% of everything else. Mainly just, it's all pre-planning, and then the day of, you're monitoring all the streams, making sure the main website stream doesn't break, and it's just a constant barrage of messages. Like, it's nothing hard, but it's, can you add this person on challenge? This guy's, like, won't register. He's mad that he got kicked off. This guy, they won't accept his payment. It's 100 little problems like that, and you're just on call for all that.
Okay.
But
what would you say, like, maybe in giving advice
honestly, it's really not that hard.
Okay, so let me ask. Then, you think that if there's any advice you would give to anyone who was going to run, like, a multi-game net play event, like, what would you say the best thing to do is? Like, one piece of really important advice.
Oh, I think it cut out.
Oh, okay. So, like, if you're running a tournament like this, multi-game, big event, lots of scheduling, what would you say the best, like, piece of advice you can give to someone who wants to do something like this is? Because there's probably going to be other people who do stuff like this in the future, right? We already know Animivo is doing it. We don't know what their format is, but,
question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, like, we can examine what you and I both know what's been working, what's not been working. So number one, delegate decisions to each community. Like, they know what platform to run on for the most part. We had some weird decisions, but, like, that alone gets the burden off all of us. Also, seeding, like, I mean, I think another big problem is if you're running a big event, they're not usually nonprofit volunteers. There's some amount of people management, and people have to wear different hats. Whereas in this case, everyone just does what they want, and it's a little bit easier to communicate with people. So definitely, I think it's just about like transparency and communication, especially when it's all online and you don't know each other. And like I said, I basically didn't speak a word to any people outside of a random call, like with my friend that I code with for the website.
Okay.
Or maybe like the chat. I think the charity I had one call, but other than that, really, it's all DMs. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it did work super well in that format. Like when I work with other events, they're like, all right, we got a list board here that we do. We put all the tasks up and stuff like that. Like, for the people watching who don't know, it was surprisingly straightforward. We just said, hey, pick a date, put it down on the list, put your rule set there. You guys already know how this works. You guys do these things already, so just do that again on this date. You tell us, right, and tell everybody that you're part of Quarantined Rapport. So like, it's actually that easy, in on paper, really. So there's an interesting way in how that actually benefits a setup like this, because when you're talking about 70 plus games, right, you can't make every decision. So I think that is probably the answer I'm looking for, right? Don't, try to centralize it. Just delegate it to the people who already know how to do these things, and just kind of let them work it in the way that they're familiar with. Because if they're familiar with it, they've probably, learned the challenges of running the game and have been battle tested in a way that you probably can't do before your event if you're new to it, right? Like, there's things that you find out are a problem at your first event, and then there's problems that you find out are a problem on your second event, or on your third, or on your fourth, right? So on and so forth. So delegating to the community, I think, is kind of the biggest thing that contributes to the success of QR as an online event. That's definitely like my personal favorite thing about it.
It could not happen if it wasn't in this sort of decentralized structure. It would look different. It could be different, but like as it is now, I think it works well. Like in terms of delegating, I don't know. It brings up a lot of future problems too. Like, we have people complaining about banned players and just like all these niche edge cases that we can't possibly manage on our own.
Right.
So if I don't want to. GDC or GDQ has a hard time because they have to manage like banned attendees and complaints on social media, and I don't know. We haven't had to deal with those sorts of policing problems yet because it's decentralized and we trust each group. But I wonder eventually if like we're going to have to start addressing that.
Yeah, I mean, at least personally, I saw a lot of people. I encouraged it on Twitter. I said, if you guys have anything good to say about it, say something, because we want to know. At the same time, because like when you put on a big event like this, you're like, what did people think, right? Like, I encourage anybody who's watching this or who will later watch it on YouTube or listen to this on Spotify, if you took part of this, either organizing or playing, especially if you played, right? Especially if you played, what did you think, right? There's a feedback form over on Quarterly Rapport's Twitter that you should go fill out, and I will also be filling out about the experience.
It's eating all my links. Oops.
Oh, it's eating all your links.
It's delayed. Hold on.
No, it's okay. I was just sending the Imgur albums of the other events.
I'm not sure why it's doing that. If you want to send it to me in the DM, I'll post it for you now.
Here, wait. Let's test it.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's being weird. All right, it's being weird, and the Twitch chat's being weird. But yeah, I think that when we wrap it up and the conversation sounds like it leads towards a future event or doing something in the future, we want to know how to get better. So if you guys can go to Quarterly Rapport's Twitter, go look at the posts, go look at the feedback form, go fill it out. It'll definitely appreciate. Now, shifting the conversation, what do you guys think? QR3 or what?
Well, yeah, we'll definitely do at least one more. I don't know if it's going to be... I feel like Quarantine will do 3. We'll see how the quarantine is going. We'll see what we have to change. Maybe that'll be like the end of our little beta test, and we'll roll out some new changes after that.
Right.
And like really rebrand it. But yeah, it's hard to say. I think at this point you can say yes, QR3 will happen at some point. We're just gonna wait and see.
Okay. Okay, so wait and see, but QR3 sounds interesting. Yeah, I mean,
give us a month off, and then we'll see how the quarantine is going.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a lot of the same communities, at least from what I understand, are interested in being involved with Anime Evo Online. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be busy over like the time immediately following Evo weekend, because as far as we're aware, right, as far as they publicly said, it's going to be taking place after Evo weekend, and that there's going to be a lot of games involved there. So there is a potential that a lot of these communities are getting in there, because that's also a volunteer effort for anyone who's not aware. Anime Evo is still a volunteer effort. It's still just people who are familiar with the games running them. They do their best to try to facilitate everything. But if you guys want to do another one, it'd definitely be great down the line or before that or something like that.
Wait, Anime, I'm trying to think of the calendar now. At least I think 2 months this time break. Because last time it was March 27th, and this one was the 13th. So how many months was that between?
May, April, 2 months.
1, 2. Yeah, okay, maybe 2 months is a good time. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes with you guys' philosophy, right? Like you guys kind of run them like 4 times a year is what you guys do.
We the name is like a multi-level pun. We try to do 4 times a year, but it always averages out to like 3 or less. So at this point, who cares?
Right.
Online would be way easier to do 4 times a year. Maybe we'll do that.
That's possible.
Like OQR. But I guess also last second, while I have you and also whoever else is in this Discord, I haven't seen. Well, what other feedback do we have from either the organizer angle or the competitor angle or the viewer angle? Any other thoughts we haven't covered yet?
That we haven't covered. I think the only thing that I heard about was the commentary experience, and that just goes back to what I was saying earlier. It'd be great if there has to be one thing that would be centralized. It would probably be the messaging that we give to the players. Like everybody did their best to mention, that it's direct relief, raising funds for COVID. Check out the link, all stuff like that. But at least personally, it'd be great to have available to every stream the incentives that they're giving away and a schedule of the other games around the same time, right? Maybe like something like that. So, because at least in our case, we were informed that Kill la Kill was going on at the end of our bracket for Fight of Animals, so we gladly moved them over. But it would also be cool to be like, all right, at the same time, up next, we're gonna have Kill la Kill. Well in advance, they're gonna know what other games are going on. So maybe that helps cross promote a little better, because there's a lot of games. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, just pacing it out to being like 5 at a time would be a huge improvement if that was even possible. Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, schedule conflicts, like as the chat's mentioning. Yeah, there's a lot of games that were.
It's just consistency, I think. Or like you're saying, have commentary be better overall. Have scheduling. Like, I would call it consistency.
Yeah, I guess that's the only thing, right? Just having a little more consistent messaging across all the games, because I wouldn't want to remove the community aspect. I think it's the strongest thing about QR2. I think it's something that other online events will probably not get right for various reasons. Probably because they're a traditional outlet, right? Moving to online, so they're working with their own staff and doing things their way. And then there's QR, which fundamentally reconsiders that and says, well, all right, all these other guys, they're doing this stuff already, so let's get them to do it, and we'll, set them up and help them get support and facilitate putting something on that weekend. That's probably the only feedback I really think that's important. I'm sure we'll hear a lot at the end of the survey and just evaluating for whatever QR3 ends up looking like. Yeah, I mean, it's a great breakdown. It's a great post-mortem. I definitely appreciate everybody who played, everybody who commentated, everybody who organized. We had a ton of fun with Fight of Animals. I was, here with Diz again on Sunday for Power Rangers, so that was a good time. My only regret is just having more time to do it, right? Like, I'm generally busy on weekends, but I was glad that we had Friday, because then I could do stuff on Friday without having to make my players show up late at night or something like that. So, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you have anything else to say. Any like conclusions, any statements you want to make about it so far?
No, I think it went pretty well, especially considering it's like our second online event, at least, for me and my team's angle. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I got to work with everyone. Everyone is surprisingly good to work with. Everyone's carrying their community pretty well. It's just a matter of where we go from here. So I don't know. We'll take your feedback into consideration. I hope we make the right decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, that's Quarterly Rapport, Vestboy. Thank you, Chris Farina, and good to have you. We're going to be talking a little bit about next-gen systems. Chris, if you want to go ahead and show yourself out, that's fine. If not, you can talk. It's up to you, man. But, good to have you as always. All right, man.
Are you talking about the new PS5?
We're going to talk a little bit about PS5 and a little bit of the presentations since those just happened, just to kind of give our thoughts.
All right, enjoy. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
See you later.
Thanks, Chris, man.
Yeah,
a lot of information, man. Thanks.
All right, guys.
Cool.
Guys, so again, Chris Farina, follow him over there. Vestboy Miss, you guys see him out here. Check him out on Twitter. Check out Quarterly Rapport. If there's a future event, we'll definitely be in there as soon as we can. So I definitely recommend it. Anyway, moving on to the other topics, we're going to be talking about PlayStation 5 because I think PlayStation 5 is a little fresher on everyone's minds. And then we'll talk about Xbox in comparison because they happened a little bit earlier, and I don't think we talked about it. But I think it's good at this point to make a comparison. Not because they're one-to-one the same product necessarily, but because there are a couple of things that I think Sony did really interesting in comparison to what Xbox has shown us so far. Aliens, I don't know. What do you think about the Sony presentation?
I'm going to just go off and start saying that the console is very sleek, right? I mean, if you look at it, it looks really nice. But I've also seen reports saying that it's fairly large. And of course, the means that make it seem like, it's some sort of a high-tech, gaming / Wi-Fi device and everything, which is cool. But in terms of the games, I'm not a fanboy of either PS4 or PlayStation for that matter, or Xbox for that matter. I've owned both in the past. I would say at worst, I would rate it a 6 out of 10. At best, depending on your perspective on what kind of games you like to play and what you're actually looking forward to playing, I would give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Out of the whole show that they had.
Okay, hearing ratings. Okay, rating is an interesting way to kick it off. Diz, what do you think about the Sony presentation?
I liked what I saw. Like overall, as a person, like full disclosure, I don't have really any brand loyalty whatsoever when it comes to gaming. I have owned all sorts of consoles across generations. I've been mostly on the Microsoft train recently, but actually, real talk, I've been mostly PC. But I've been on the Microsoft train for the past couple of generations, so I did skip PS3, I did skip PS4. I normally just bummed off of other people when I tried to play stuff. But I was able to come in looking pretty clean at this. And how I normally handle consoles is I just have a specific list of demands that I kind of want.
Okay.
And if they meet them, no matter when it is, I will pick that console.
Okay.
Personal opinions aside, I think what Sony showed off was extremely impressive. I was blown away by quite a few of the games that they were showing off, and a lot of the tech that they were showing off in the process. I think honestly think the shining light in all of that was Ratchet and Clank showing off what they were doing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I was gonna talk about that game, but yeah, go on.
No, you can go in depth later.
Okay,
but yeah, I think between them showing off that little bit of tech, us finally seeing the price of it, even though they didn't mention it during the well, the potential price of it. Like they didn't mention it during the whole thing, and that was one thing. That was like the one thing everybody was gonna ask at the end of it. So that was a little disappointing. They never showed it. Shout outs to everybody on the on like the graphic design front and the presentation, all the video guys. Like they worked their tails off trying to make that presentation as impressive as it could possibly be, even without a stage or anybody to come up and actually present anything.
Yeah, it was definitely quality.
Yeah, the console itself, it's freaking gigantic. I love the look. I know people are very back and forth, but that kind of just hits my aesthetic anyway. So I just left out there.
Looks like a wipeout machine, so you're like, all right, yeah, I'll play that.
Right, exactly. Wipeout machine with the Wipeout game on it. Let's go.
Let's go.
It's like it's been inspired by Elon Musk's SpaceX and stuff, you know?
Exactly, and like that. Like that's what the future, that's that future look that sometimes gets shown off a big like Y2K aesthetic thing. There's all sorts of little things they did. I'm very impressed with the controller.
I've heard a ton of things
I
about
don't
that thing.
mind the digital version versus the version with the disc tray. We all know which one most of us are probably getting, but
Right.
I don't mind there being 2 editions.
I agree with that personally.
And
That's a good thing, actually, yeah.
I do think it's a good thing. Like variety is good. Like not everybody's gonna be able to pay up the whole thing, and if you're able to go without the tray, you're able to go without the tray. That's fine.
Yeah, I do want to like break down every little aspect now, right? Now that we think about it. So I want to start with the games because the games are kind of paramount to everything. And you mentioned Ratchet and Clank, and I want to say that this is something Xbox did not do. And it's something that Sony very wisely got from Nintendo. In a brash act of crediting them, I'm going to say that Nintendo had this on lock for years, and Sony finally did it, and now Xbox doesn't have this. They kind of have this, but not in specific to a game. They made something that can only be done, at least in the front and the face of it, on their hardware. They made a game that runs and is built in a way that everybody understands why you should buy a PS5, because no other console offers you this thing that the game offers, right? This is why, like, when you see a Wii, you look at the Wii and you're like, what the fuck do I do with this thing, right? And then it comes with a game that shows you everything you can do with it. And Wii Fit was a massive success, and the Wii was a massive success. So it was Wii Sports, but you understand. They made these products that explained both to their consumer base and to their developers, hey, this is what you can do with our console. This is why you should buy it. This is why you should develop games for our console. This is why you should be excited for it, because check out all this cool shit we can do. And the fact that they showed, entire world spaces being loaded and unloaded within seconds, right? As a game mechanic. You would never think a loading screen would be a game mechanic, but taking advantage of the SSD, they can make that possible. So that's great. I'm happy to hear that. It's one of the more interesting things. And the only thing I can think of that Xbox did for this, in this regard, was when they showed us the smart resume. So, like, they pause a game and it went back into the UI and you can switch to another game. Like, that's cool. Xbox, as far as I'm aware, Sony doesn't have that. So, that's a cool thing. But it's not a game. You don't buy it for $60. It comes with the Xbox. So you kind of...
definitely more OS.
It loses a little bit of value, right? Like, you're not hyped for that particular thing.
It's not as bombastic.
Exactly.
I think on the Microsoft front, a lot of the things that they are doing extremely well with the Series X are more infrastructure based and more like intangible things.
Yes, exactly.
Being able to getting like the free upgrade no matter what version of the game you got. Being able to go 4 generations back in backward compatibility. Being able to honestly even technically just hold off on the Series X and get it when you're ready. They're like, we don't even need y'all at launch. Get the games now. When you get the Xbox, when you're ready for the Series X, we'll be ready for you. That's honestly amazing.
It is.
Yeah, it definitely feels more PC centric, right? I mean, that's just kind of how it is with PC, because you can get the game now, maybe play it on medium settings or high settings, but then when you get, the better video card and you don't have to change your motherboard or anything like that, now you can play on Ultra.
Right.
Whatever,
So it's in
yeah.
Microsoft's best interest to bridge the gap between PC and console, because obviously
that's both
Windows, right? That's both of their businesses. Exactly.
That they
exactly what they're doing.
Work in that. They do work in that domain. Nobody else can do that.
But I think Diz has it right? Like, those are nice things. They're intangible things, though. You don't buy them on a box. They don't sell them at the store. You just get them on the console.
They're not gonna sell. They're not gonna sell a box that just says backwards compatibility on it.
Hey man, they're not gonna sell you a VMU, but they'll come as close as they can, I guess. But it's definitely a hard sell, right, for Xbox to be in this position, because I think that like Sony making a game that advertises their hardware as well as that Ratchet and Clank game seems to be doing is going to have a lot more impact in my ability, or in my opinion rather, than what the OS does, for example. Like,
Yes.
all of those things are great, for the record. But
they kind of painted themselves into a corner in that situation, because like they would have bombastic games that they could show off, Halo Infinite and stuff like that, but the main thing you think about is like, yo, it's gonna be on Xbox One anyway.
yeah.
So we're just gonna
And
gear up for
ultimately,
that version. The consumer's gonna gear up for that version, and then when the X comes out, maybe we'll upgrade. But we're not even looking at what it can look at as.
I mean, if Xbox doesn't
like a previous generation.
If Xbox doesn't want to sell a console right away for whatever reason, which sounds like a really crazy business motivation, then power to them, I guess. But like, they definitely should try to sell games. And unfortunately, like, I don't think the game lineup was that strong. Like, very interesting sequels were announced and stuff like that, but I don't think the game lineup is anything like Miles Morales' Marvel's Spider-Man. That is such a big IP to have under your belt for your Future of Gaming event. Like,
that's strong.
That is a huge IP. That is a huge project. That is one of the biggest things that they could have shown off. I mean, and I'm not even talking about Bloodborne, or not even Bloodborne, Demon Souls, rather. I'm not even talking about Demon Souls yet. Like, the fact that I can talk about Ratchet and Clank, which looks like a very smart innovation. Then we're talking about a major IP, and then we're talking about a remaster of one of the best games of the PS3. Like, that's a really strong lineup out the gate.
Well, the thing is, you can argue that two of those three are just sequel talk, like you
yes,
you said,
they are sequel talk. Yes,
so like,
I think that
the big one that they can't compete with is Spider-Man.
Yes, well,
it's tough.
That's the thing, right? Like, Spider-Man's a big IP, and I don't think there were any really big IP shown except for Halo. And then, like, Ratchet and Clank is a sequel. I don't recall if Xbox made a similar announcement for something of that genre or something of that franchise. I mean, they have Rare, for God's sake. I'm just surprised they haven't done it sooner. But power to them. I think Obsidian's game is probably the same. Was it Obsidian? Yeah, it was Obsidian that they did the little guys that shrink and they're in the garden or whatever. I can't even remember the name of the game right now, but like, I guess that's in the similar space. And then Demon Souls is really big. It's a remaster, right? But like, if there's remasters, and then there's Demon Souls remastered. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of sits on the highest pedestal of those games that you can get to. So I hope.
Yeah, Souls games are so strong they eliminated Armored Core.
Yes, exactly. Like they put them out of business. They put that entire series out of business.
I used to love that.
I'm gonna say this, and a couple people have already argued me about it, but I'm gonna just say it so that later, if it turns out right, I can option select and say I was right. I think that if they're gonna remaster Demon Souls, okay, Demon Souls originally was developed in collaboration with Sony Japan, right? Most of its publishing in Europe was done by Bandai Namco. Most of the Souls games after that were published by Bandai Namco internationally. Sony has not published any other game after Demon Souls. It's very likely that game ends up on PC, is all I'm saying, right? I think that, FromSoft is a much bigger studio. They have a much bigger, proven product to sell. Demon Souls was a question to answer back when it came out. It worked out really well for them, but Demon Souls was kind of slept on in comparison to Dark Souls, and then Dark Souls 2 blew up the genre. So, this didn't even happen that long ago. We're just talking about just the 2000s, for Christ's sake. But, I mean, like, I think that if Bandai Namco is involved in this again, and FromSoft is involved, because remember, they're still producing Elden Ring, then maybe they're going to have some leverage over saying, yeah, we want to put this thing on PC because all of our games come out on PC. That's consistent with Bandai. They always put out the PC version. It's not good necessarily, but they always do. So I don't know.
Which is fine. Like the biggest thing Sony usually asks for is a period of exclusivity in this
Exactly.
data.
Yes.
I think
And that's
inevitable.
good enough for them. Like they usually work with that pretty well.
Yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, you have Death Stranding, right, coming
That's
to
trying to come to
PC.
PC. Horizon.
Then Horizon's going to come to PC. So I think that's just inevitable. And I think I look at it like this: Xbox, obviously, from the looks of it, doesn't seem so desperate to sell you a new piece of hardware. Right, because they're targeting a whole different group of people, past, present, and potentially future, right? So, and in the sense of past, they're also targeting PC, right? Because I mean, you have computers that people probably own for 5-6 years, and they still run the games fairly well for those people, right? They're okay with those results, and now that they might be interested in perhaps upgrading, a piece of hardware, most people that I've met from that play on PC, they just rather stick to playing on PC, right? They don't want to jump into the console stratosphere because there might be limitations there that they don't really like, right? So what I think Xbox is doing, which is obvious, right? They're practically going to go ahead and unite both, right? Xbox and PC. The console will be for people that are just mostly comfortable or familiar with that piece of hardware and would rather just maybe game in their living room perhaps, or to be there with their friends. But at the same time, they're also bringing together or at least incorporating the PC crew, right, that has been there since forever, right? And bringing them two together and now giving their library, their Xbox library, to the PC. And no, of course, crossplay is definitely going to be an option. I would definitely see that big push coming within the next, I don't know, few months, maybe in less than a year. That you're going to see that happening a lot. So what I think is that Sony knows that this is what Xbox is doing. So I think it's just going to be a matter of time before you start seeing more and more games from Sony, like you said with Demon Souls, or games that have been exclusive to their console, now get pushed onto PC by other developers or publishers, because they're seeing like, well, why should I give Sony the exclusivity when if I go ahead and do this with Xbox, my game is going to be on PC probably in a few months, so that's just money that I'm missing out on. So that's kind of like bad business. So it kind of in a sense forces Sony to start adhering to the PC community, because you can't just let your competitor have both options and you're just left with one, or you have one but you're behind a few months. Then why would I buy your console if I can play the same games practically on the PC? And then now you have to sell me your IPs. Now you have to sell me those first party games. You have to sell me on that now, which is it goes back to the point you were saying about Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man, games like that. Now, if you like those kind of games, you'll go and buy them. If you don't, then you really won't care. Me personally, I have a PC already. I don't plan on buying an Xbox because I have a PC. So I'd be more inclined to get a PS5 because I want to play those games. But it's just a matter of seeing where the demand is going to go, right? Because now that Xbox has two units, you can say, on their end, and Sony's mostly focusing on their hardware, where are the people going to rather go? Because last generation, I bought a PS4 when it first came out, and then I just switched to PC, and I don't even use my PS4 as often. So we have to see where are the demographics going? Are they going more towards consoles these days, or are people now no longer afraid to jump into PC? And I think that's the gamble that Xbox is taking now, because they see that perhaps maybe people are more prone to jumping into PC now. They're not as intimidated as they may have been in the early 2000s or in the 90s. So we have to see, because Sony's banking on people still depending on consoles to play games and Xboxes.
I think though that there's something to bring up there. I know you have something to say.
Yeah, I think it's really. I think it's just a question of like Sony is going for a focus strat, Microsoft is going for a spread strat.
Yeah,
like, that's really it.
Now let's
when we look at Sony, that means the focus strat is just going to be stronger. It's a laser versus a bomb. Like
right. And I wanna square into a specific part of the market though, because I mentioned earlier that the OS features of the console don't necessarily move units. But if we look at the market of people who are playing on PC already, I don't know how big it is. I don't imagine it's that big. It's bigger than it used to be because more people are playing PC than ever, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, there is going to be a subsect of people who are going to be looking at this generation of console seriously for various reasons, right? One, there's a big hardware requirement that might happen for PC games. If any of these games decide to ship PC versions, they might start asking for SSDs to enable certain features, or at least personally, I don't have an SSD yet. My games run fine. Like, I'll play any game on my PC and it'll work, but there's a question mark over my head now. Do I need an SSD to play this game? And not only that, both Sony and Xbox have been very adamant about the kinds of SSDs that you can use on your consoles. They've said outright, the kinds of SSDs that you buy for your PC, not the ones that are going to work on our consoles, because for performance reasons, those don't get configured correctly, and we need to sell you specialized, whatever bullshit. They want to sell you your own SSD is the point, right? So later on, like, you can believe whatever technical reason you want. Fact is, they want to sell you their own SSDs. Great, okay? So, that being said, the PC versions of these games might suffer, because either you're not able to access ultra graphics or whatever because you need an SSD, or the game does not play the same on PC or whatever, which would be a huge break in how things have been. I mean, and with that said, I mentioned earlier that you don't necessarily move units with OS features, but if you ask me, I think having quick resume is something that PCs just can't do currently. Windows would never be able to accommodate that because, there's a million different ways an application would run. So that sounds like a cool feature for me as a PC user. Like, hey, I like that, being able to pause the game and go to another one, no load time or whatever. That's nice. I can't do that on my PC. I don't think Windows will ever have that feature, frankly. It's just a matter of locking down your system to where you can have that capability without it ruining the rest, right?
It's very beneficial for streaming.
Microsoft
too,
could
right?
prove,
Because
exactly.
How many times are you streaming a game and then all of a sudden you just maybe don't want to play the game, or the game is giving you errors? So like, you know what? I'll come back to this later. Let me pull this one up right now, and it's so seamless.
It's very seamless.
So I think that's very important too, because as you can see, this past generation, streaming has blown up. I mean, what are we doing right now? We're all streaming, or we're all playing games online, and showcasing them. Having tournaments like Quarterly's doing, and it's just now. That's what it is. So I mean, it's to have a feature that makes everything so much more seamless for you. I think that's a big deal, because that's going to be dependent on OS. But you can have the best IPs in the world, you can have the best graphics, but if you have to keep going back to home and closing this application or that application, or maybe this one's connected to the internet because you're still having it open or whatever, that's too much to do, man. That's a lot. And obviously, with the current climate with streaming, you want to have people's attention, right? So if it takes you too long to switch a game, you might lose viewers, right?
You will lose viewers. Yes, you will. It's just
go to the restroom.
You can't even get a bathroom break. You know what I mean? So if you can't get a bathroom break, then neither can the Xbox. So come on, right? So that's what I think. I think that's really smart. Because if you focus on that first, then it's just a matter of working deals out. Yeah, people are fickle, but you gotta understand, they're spending time watching you, right? So they want to feel like this guy's on his game. Yeah,
interested in what's going on, right?
If nothing's going on, you change the channel.
Exactly. So I think it's really important that Microsoft does that. Why? Because they understand this dynamic that's going on now, right? And time is of the essence. And the quicker you can do these things, you might be able to play 3 different games in a stream and maybe just waste, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or a minute in between all of them and switching. It just makes it much better. And then you might have, a group of people in the chat saying, hey, why don't you play this instead? Well, if I get enough people to tell me to play it, I'll do that right now. Okay, perfect. Everybody in the chat says, let's play this. Okay, buy whatever game this is. Goodbye. And then open the other one, and boom, everybody's happy. Right? So I think that's really smart, because if you focus on the OS feature like that first, then it's just a matter of time and working out the right deal with the right publisher, right, or the right developer to get those games onto your system. I mean, it's business, right? If you try to throw money on their table, they might just go ahead and take it.
Yeah, Xbox is definitely making good moves and stuff like that, because also you're spoiled for choice when you buy an Xbox. assuming you're in a country where one, an Xbox is available, and two, Game Pass is available, which I'll get to in a minute because I think there's an elephant in the room here. But that aspect is critical to Microsoft's strategy. There's like, all right, you buy our console, you buy our service, you basically don't have to buy games. We'll give you the games. You download them all. You can switch between them very easily. It's all very fast, right? You know, give you this big SSD. You can buy another SSD if you like the game so much, so you can keep them. You know, those things are great. And I hope it works out for them. I mean, I guess Microsoft has really solidified their position on Game Pass. Everyone I know who asks about it likes it, so that's great. I think that, you know, the only thing they need to really get together with and to really compete with Sony, and okay, this is where I'm going to address something that kind of, I think Microsoft will never be totally dominant of the same market that Sony is for this reason. Game Pass is available in select countries, right? So you're telling me that if Game Pass is not available in my country, then my number one reason to buy your console doesn't exist. That's the problem that I have with this climate, right? Like, if by the time Series X comes out, they are able to massively expand where Game Pass is offered, then good, right? If they can sell Xboxes in more places and offer Game Pass in more places, because those two challenges are not the same. One thing is shipping the box, and the other thing is getting the rights from all these developers to put them in another country, right? If they can do that, then they have a chance of competing with Sony. But right now, that's not what's happening. A lot of games are having issues with regions. Phantasy Star Online 2, for some horrible reason, came out with an NA-only release. All the servers are for North America. Which, you mean to tell me that this game that has been out for years and years and years cannot get a European release, cannot get, you know, other regions in on it? You have to have a North American Xbox account to play your game.
That's everybody's fault, right? It took them 8 years just to get NA.
Just to get in, right? And then when you do it...
just to get NA. Yeah, I think Microsoft had to beg them for that.
Yeah, it's really rough to think about the fact that Xbox could innovate in so many ways, but they're going to be behind Sony for one simple reason. Their Xbox is not available in many places of the world. It's not reasonable to be part of their services. So with that being said...
But the PC is.
But the PC is!
That's the truth.
But that being said, you know, Game Pass is still available on PC. So they need to do more to kind of like expand the offering of Game Pass. Game Pass is a really smart idea. There's a lot of games that I really like on there. But if I can't... One thing that they're kind of pigeonholing people into is that if you get a Game Pass game, you play with people on Xbox, right? Like, you lock them into your services. That's really smart. Yeah. But the problem is that if you're not part of the countries that can access those services reliably, you're left out. And that's really, really weird, because PSN is offered globally. There's absolutely no issues with buying a game. Sure, PS Plus is nowhere near the same thing as Game Pass. But if you buy it, you're not going to have a problem inviting your friends to play. So that universal approach that Sony has doesn't offer you everything, but it's available all over the world. So at the end of the day, you know, to kind of wrap up my thoughts on PS5 versus Xbox, like, PS5 is a really strong showing. Lots of really good games that do a lot of really good things to market the game. Sony knocked it out of the park in terms of marketing. They looked at every single game and they said, what can we market to the most people possible? They said, okay, well, we got a game that innovates with our hardware so people know what we're doing. We got a major IP that people want to see more of. You know, we got a remaster of a game that hardcore gamers love. Like,
and Grand Theft Auto 5 again.
And Grand Theft Auto 5 is back. So you got an audience already. Just
also, like, low-key one of the biggest esports right now coming back through the PS4, Gran Turismo 7.
Oh yes. I'm personally really happy about Gran Turismo. I'm not one of those people who has followed Forza. I'm not, you know, those games get really good reviews. You know, I haven't played like a racing game for more than like 20 hours ever since Gran Turismo 4 on PlayStation 2. I really liked that game. That was it. You know, I didn't get a PS3, so I didn't play those. I played PGR a little bit when I had it on Xbox, and that was kind of it for me. You know, the genre didn't go many places. Now it is. Now there's a fucking racing game with crossplay. You got out of your mind. Great time to play racing games nowadays. By the way,
no kidding.
it really is. So, like, I'm happy for them, right? That they're able to market this, and I think that despite all that, Xbox needs to, if they want to go in on subscription-based services, and they want to bridge the gap between PC and console by offering a common platform, it needs to be available in more territories, for crying out loud. That is such a huge glaring problem in their strategy.
That is 100,000% true.
So
yeah, and not just that. I mean, also, I'm in Costa Rica, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is shit. Sorry to dox you, but I don't know. I really don't know anybody in Costa Rica that really owns an Xbox. I know
exactly.
Maybe like
I don't even know where to get one, like off the top of my head.
You can't find that here.
Where do I get that? I actually don't know.
And the hard part about it is this: like, this is what kind of inclined me to go after PS5 if I had to choose a console, because, like I said, personally, I'd rather just get the PS5 and then just get Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and then I have both because I have the PC, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I'm actually more inclined to get the PS5 digital for the simple
I am too,
reason
by the way. Yeah, I was totally forgot
that, because here in Costa Rica, if you try to get a physical game, depending on where you get it, I'm assuming that the PS5 game isn't going to be $60 like it's been for the last 2 generations. I think it's going to go up to $70.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if it went to $80, but $70, I'm pretty sure it's going to go up to $70. So, for example, for context, right here in Costa Rica, if you try to get a digital physical copy of a game, you could be paying anywhere between $80 up to $120. I've paid that much for a physical copy of a game.
Yes. There is a major problem with buying a disc in some parts of the world where these things are imported and they have additional costs. Personally, I've been buying digital as many times as I can. I don't think I have a single box game in my house for any console.
I haven't bought a physical copy of a game since Mortal Kombat X. That was the last.
I'm gonna show the stream the physical copies of games that I have. Hold on.
Yeah, and that was when it came out. The day it came out.
That's a much different experience from my own. Where like I'm over here, I'm buying physical copies of games that I don't even have the console for.
Look, y'all, this is the latest copy of any game I have. This is the newest game I have a disc for. This is the only thing. This is maybe the newest game I have a disc for.
Full disclosure, on my stream, he showed Kirby's Air Ride.
This is like the only thing. I mean, there's no other. What would I have a disc box for? They're expensive. They're
so expensive.
Hard to get.
And that's just a physical copy. Now, when we're talking about hardware, like a controller or a battery pack, it's the same issue that we face here, right? So, ever since I had my PS4, like I said, the last game I bought physical was MKX. Everything since then has been digital. And for me, I'm originally from New York, but I have also a Florida mailing address. So if I use my Florida mailing address, I don't even have to pay taxes to buy the game digitally. But if I use my New York account, they're going to charge me, I think it's like $8 tax. So
plus shipping, plus all that crap. Like
even for digital, they charge you now. Sony did that to me the other day when I bought what did I buy? Oh, Final Fantasy. When I bought Final Fantasy digital, I forgot, and I still had, because before it wasn't like that. They wouldn't charge you tax. Now, even if you have a like, for example, New York address, they charge you that tax. But then I was like, oh, fuck that, I'm not doing that. So when I bought Death Stranding on sale, because it was on sale for $30, I remember, I'm like, nah, let me see if I put this Florida address that I also have, because I use my Florida address to Costa Rica, and I didn't pay tax on that. So for me, it just makes more sense to get the digital PS5, because number one, it's just so expensive to buy those games here, and number two, I have the Florida address, so I don't have to even pay the tax to get the game. I don't want to pay $140 for a copy of a game. It's crazy, man.
Completely
man.
Unbelievable. Yeah, no, and I mean, like, at least personally, I don't have a PlayStation, but I have a PSN account just because there's a lot of people with PlayStation accounts, so I have one. And I have a couple games on there. Like, I'll buy a game for the PSN for the explicit purpose going to somebody's house and playing on their PlayStation because we want to both play that game. And I just sign up for a PSN account, and I don't have any problems with that. But I can't even get to that part with Xbox. I don't know why. I guess they don't accept accounts from my region. But it is what it is, right? Like, you guys get the point. Regional availability with Xbox is a major problem. And whether we like it or not, Sony is still going to have their product over stores all over the world. And the only people who can really rival them is Nintendo. That's because Nintendo is more popular in terms of IP than anything out there. Right. So they kind of force the issue.
That's the only advantage.
That's exactly the fact that they're Nintendo.
Such a huge advantage.
Like
they are Nintendo. They can do no
global
wrong.
Brands. I mean, I'm from a Latino household, so my mom, no matter whatever the console was, everything.
They know Nintendo. Exactly, right? Like
this shit could be Jaguar. Turn off that Nintendo. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So, that's what I'm saying.
Nintendo is the shorthand for consoles. Yeah,
exactly.
And then it became
like
PlayStation
for soda.
But then it changed to PlayStation. Then it changed.
Sorry, yeah, it did kind of change the PlayStation, right? Because
then it became PlayStation. Turn off that PlayStation.
Well, the PS2, because of the PS2, right? The PS2 was much more available globally than the Xbox was at the same time.
Yeah. So then that terminology changed. So they're global brands. Xbox isn't even close to being that. Now, obviously, when it comes to Windows and PC,
they're the only other option. But
everybody knows Windows. So this also leads me to believe, where does Steam come into play? Because Steam is playing both sides. Remember, you're gonna have Death Stranding on Steam.
You know, I'm gonna get. You know what? Good point. You know what I'm gonna say? I'm gonna say this: Steam is the the bandage for this problem. Okay, yes. It's the bandage on this problem because Xbox should be fixing this anyway. But if they put a game out on Steam, Steam has no issues logistically. You can download Steam anywhere. You can pay for it almost anywhere. They figured the length of which Steam has developed their payment system and their international support is ahead of everybody else in the game. Nobody has it. So when Microsoft comes out and says we're gonna put a game on Steam, it's not because they don't think they're making enough money. Or EA, it's because they have a genuine problem. They want to sell this thing to the entire world, but their platforms aren't made, Yeah, they're going to make enough money to return on profit, probably, but they want to sell this thing to absolutely everybody. And they can't do it unless there's a valid infrastructure.
Give it to them.
And why would you want to switch from Steam? Why would you want to switch from Steam anyway if you're a PC user? It's actually more convenient that these two brands actually start providing their titles on your platform of choice. So why would you want to leave Steam? No, you guys come to us. We're not going to you. You want us? You come to Steam.
Game Pass being available on its own platform is fine, I guess, but EA Access is supposed to come to Steam. That's big. That's a game subscription service that you can buy on Steam. They're gonna give you everything on Steam. Like, that is so... Valve is probably, Gabe Newell has been counting his money for years, right? But now there's entire subscription services that are gonna hedge their PC business on Steam. So, like...
I do think that's a little ridiculous.
I mean, like, EA is going to be selling their Origin platform on Steam. Like, that's just the fact. That's a huge shift in their business.
Part of the strength of PC is that there isn't really a monopoly holding
exactly.
It down.
And despite that,
the Steam's right there.
Yeah, and despite that, here's Steam.
We kind of need it, It's kind of that necessary evil, right?
It is a necessary evil, right? Like, because there was a big push, because that's what people brought up, right, when in regards to PC. When Origin was new, they were giving away games, they were putting out EA Access, they were putting out all these things so they could get users, right? And Steam was still there. Because despite all these nice shiny things they throw at you, and it happened again with Epic Game Store, the service is battle-tested, right? It's a necessary evil because Steam is full of experience, they haven't blatantly screwed us over yet, and, like... There's no... Every time you look at another service, you look at it and you say, this is not Steam. Because the quality comparison fails them every single time.
I do agree with that.
Maybe there's a platform that gets really good over time. Maybe 2 years from... I still don't think Epic Game Store is in a great place, but maybe 2 years from now, it's as good as Steam. But by then, it's probably too late. right? Like Steam still has the market share.
Because like, my library's on Steam.
Yeah, because the fact is that they win.
And you can share it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can share your
Well,
library.
they might be able to put that into other libraries, right? But the fact is, those things have been tested to oblivion on Steam, so we can't really, you can't put out a product from the get-go, or even within a reasonable amount of time, with the level of polish that Steam has. Steam has been running for how long now, right? Like, decades. It's insane. But, it's one of the very many quandaries of PC gaming. And I think this generation is going to be interesting for PC gamers because they're going to have more options, but at the same time, consoles are going to look even more appealing, right? There's going to be more ways for you to get your game, but at the same time, the console is going to have, in some cases, the exact same services you're familiar with, the exact same games, and a couple of things that, for once in a long time, Windows won't offer you, right? I've said it many times, I hope that either Xbox or Sony are seriously investing in content creation tools. I think that if either one of these consoles is able to really harness the market and create replays, share them to Twitch, share the streams, offer customizable streams, offer more interaction tools, just big things like that, the market will change for consoles. And they'll have a very major advantage. But we'll see. I think at this point,
they don't have Steam, bro.
they don't have Steam, but they will be getting closer. They will be getting just a few steps closer to being, a real dominant force. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about it for now. I think we've really exhausted that topic. So just to wrap up, what have you been playing? What games have stood out to us lately? Aliens, go.
I've been shamelessly playing Destiny 2 again on PC, and I'm shamelessly admitting it, and I'm not ashamed to admit it because, fuck, man, that game, I played a lot of the first game, and I joined a clan. Shout out to Enigma, Enigma PC. I saw that they had a post on the Bungie forums. I asked if I can join. They accepted me, and they have like almost 300 players on their clan, bro. So I was like, fuck it, let's do it. I needed people to play Destiny with, and now I got 300 fucking people, So I'm all for it, So I'm shamelessly playing Destiny 2 again.
All right, cool. Tiz, what's up?
All right, I've mostly been shoring up with the big collections of old games. I'll sit there and hunt for deals all day. And be like, that's another Steam advantage. It ain't many platforms where multiple websites can be like, here, have this AAA game plus 3 other games you may or may not have heard of for $6. Let's go.
Speaking of free games, guys, at the time of recording, Injustice 2 is free. I'm sorry, the first Injustice is free on Steam, so go check it out. It's for free.
Yes, yeah. Everybody go pick that up if they got a chance.
Go pick that up. Send me a DM. I'll play with you. I haven't played Shazam in years.
You can't beat free. Yeah,
exactly.
$3.99, baby.
Mm-hmm. But other than that, yeah, I've been on some Xbox Game Pass things. I've been big on Phantasy Star.
Yes.
And we've had a bit of a resurgence of some multiplayer games and like a whole lot of racing games out of nowhere.
Yes,
so
a lot of racing games.
That's just sort of what I've been doing. I got a few things I've got 1 or 2 things I'm looking out for on the horizon, but we'll see about those when we get to them.
Yeah, so I'll guess I'll share my experience. I was sitting, at my desk thinking about what I wanted to stream later, and I see a tweet that says, Titanfall 2 is $9 on Steam, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's true. The game is finally on Steam, and I've been saying it for months. I was like, I really want to play this game. I want to play it on PC, but I'm not sure I want to play it on Origin. Oh, but it's $10 on Steam? Oh, get the fuck out of here. I'm just going to buy the game, and I'm going to play it, and I've been having a ton of fun. Titanfall 2, fun game. If you've never played it, it's $10 on Steam. The fact that you can buy it on Steam means that so many more people are going to buy it. People are going to be playing this thing for so long. Now that it's on Steam, the player base is there for shooters.
Or just rejuvenated the game.
Yeah, the audience for shooters is probably bigger on Steam than any other platform, if you ask me. Like, the fact that the entire platform was built on a shooter, right, and the various mods of a shooter, mean that everyone who's on that platform understands you can buy shooters there. So you can buy one of the best shooters out there on PC for $10. It's going to be $30 when the sales ends. $30 is still cheap. And it just seems like a perfect formula for a game that's going to be there for a long time. I already said it. Halo on PC, that shit's never going to die. And then now Titanfall, it's going to be around for a very long time. So check it out. I've been playing matches, within 10 seconds for the entire time. So, there's tons of people playing.
That's the beauty of Steam, man. And PC. It's just
what else? Let me see. What else have I been playing? I think I played Phantasy Star. I've been playing a lot of Phantasy Star. I'm glad to finally have that in a place I can work with it. I played a little bit of Injustice 2. I never played that game on launch. So now I bought it because it was like $5, and I like it. I actually really like it. I'm surprised.
Yeah, it's honestly quite good.
I think it's kind of slept on.
I like it more than MK11.
I know, yeah. I really thought that at first.
MK10.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it took a lot of the wheels off of MK11. I was like, hey, this game, it's got some of that. It's a little more freeform. I felt like I could immediately start doing stuff a little more easily, right? And it, it has a lot of things that people are more familiar with from other fighting games. Anyway, good game. I want to stream both of the stories since I wasn't going to stream Injustice 1. Yeah. But now that it's free, I guess I will. That's fine. That's fine. You gave me both
back to back.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll probably be doing that very soon. And we just wrapped up Quarterly Rapport, so I'm just kind of taking a breather from tournament running, and the next one's going to be great. I have no hints yet as to what it's going to be. I'm still kind of figuring it out internally, but when we have something lined up for our next event, it's going to be big. It's going to have some very nice new perks. Please keep an eye on it. And I think that just about wraps up the show. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say.
Not really. Just Last of Us 2 is out. If you haven't played.
Oh, is it? Oh God.
Oh yeah,
okay.
no, it is out.
Because
I'm already hearing some stuff, and I'm
bro, that Metacritic looks brutal, bro. That Metacritic user score is brutal right now.
Man, the people took that game out back and shot it. Oh, good God.
I mean, yo,
I'm willing to give it some time though. I'm like, that's a long game. We'll give people some more time.
Honestly, I don't expect to play it, honestly, but wow, those reviews, man, Jesus Christ, man. If you look at that, it's bad, man. But yeah, I mean, other than that,
the series too. God dang.
Oh yeah, man, it's really bad. And just
it's gonna be one of those games that people never stop talking about because it's gonna sell so much money for Sony.
I don't think Naughty Dog will recover from this.
They'll probably make a different kind of game. I don't think they need to recover. They're probably done with this shit. They're never gonna make another one of those Last of Us games anyway. Probably.
I don't think.
They don't. They're gonna take their money and run.
If this is the catalyst to get Jack Baxter back, I'm down.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. They need to go back to that.
I'm telling you, man.
Jack Baxter remaster, calling it now.
So yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, just shamelessly playing Destiny, and then next month will be Ghost of Tsushima. So I think that's the game to really look out
buy
for.
That. Get that. I want to see it. Yeah.
I want to watch that. Yeah.
That looks crazy, but I think actually isn't Xbox supposed to have an event also?
I have no idea.
July or August? I heard that they were.
I have no idea.
I have to confirm that, but I believe they were scheduled to do that, and if they do, of course, we'll discuss it here. See what they show, because supposedly they were going to have an event in July to show more Halo Infinite stuff, and I got to confirm to see if that's actually still going to happen, and if they do. Hey man, we might be back here discussing, what's PS5 gonna do, what's Sony gonna do about this, because I'm sure they got a lot of stuff they want to talk about.
Yeah, I think that now I think there's more stuff just overall across all gaming being shown off next week, right?
I can't confirm. EA Play already happened.
Plus, that's something like that.
Yeah, no.
I think
what was it? EA's event already happened. So that's another
I think
one.
EA happened. No,
that was today, I think. No,
that was 2 days ago.
I think I'm thinking of New Game Plus. I think that's what the name of it is.
New Game. Oh yeah. The Japanese one, the Asian one.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. SNK and Arc System Works are gonna be there.
They're gonna come in hot and heavy. Yeah.
You think so? All right. Word.
I think there's. Well, no, I'm like.
All right.
Everybody.
So
SNK.
I do want to give a.
I think there's gonna be some neat announcements at that.
I wouldn't be surprised if Namco shuffles up with like Elden Ring or something like that to that event. That would be something to expect. And then
so I'm reading. There actually is supposed to be an event in July for Xbox. I'm actually reading that article right now.
Okay.
This is an article from I think 2 days ago, saying that yeah, there's supposed to be a July event. Just put that out there, yeah.
All right, yeah, okay. So we'll be back here very shortly. Keep in mind, follow the channel. Subscribe to all of us. Go check us out. We're on Twitter all the time. GBL.gg is our new website. Go check us out. Yeah, we'll be seeing you guys next time. So super glad to have you. I think that's it. Have a good one.
Peace out, everyone.